So in this video, we're going to start to learn the money multiplier. The reason we're looking at the money multiplier is because we try to understand how much money are actually going to supply to the market. So the model we're going to see is based on we already understand the factors that are affecting the money supply, because every factor we learned in the previous video, such as the required reserve, the currency holding by the individual, all of them will play a very important role in this model. And you will see every factor in this model as well. So the money multiplier. So how we're going to get our total money supply? So that is the formula we're using. Actually, you already seen in your principal macroeconomic class. So the M stands for money supply, and MB is my money base, monetary base. So remember what we learned. It's basically the liability of the Federal Reserve. So the money supply equal to M. That is the money multiplier we're going to learn in this video, times the monetary base. So first, how are we going to figure out the value for the money multiplier? We have to go back to think about the factors we learned in the previous lecture. So the previous lecture, we talked about the money holding by an individual and the excessive reserve and how that's going to affecting positive or negatively affecting the money supply. So as here, we're going to actually quantify those effects. So first of all, as we said, the currency holding by the individual going to negatively affecting the our money supply, and excessive reserve also going to negatively affecting our money supply. Therefore, we're going to creating two ratios that are indicating how much currency or how many deposits never coming back to the banking system actually holding as a currency, and how many checkable deposits will any at one bank become their excessive reserve. So therefore, we keep creating these two ratios, C and E. So C stands for the currency ratio. So we're basically using the currency holding by the individual divided by the total checkable deposit we have. And so the E stands for excessive reserve ratio. So that we're using the excessive reserve from the bank divided by the checkable deposit. Like I said, C and the E, C are affected by the individual and the depositors, and the E is affected by the commercial banks and the saving institutions. So basically those financial institutions. And the C and the E should have a negative impact. Remember, they are the more currency you're holding, the more excessive reserve the bank's holding, actually gonna negatively affecting money supply. So the C and E should have a negative impact on our money supply. So C and E we defined. And so the second that we mentioned about excessive reserve, required reserve. So therefore, we create another important factor to indicating how the reserve affecting money supply. So this is called the R. And so R equal to RR plus ER. So the R is the total amount of reserve. So those reserve will never ever be lended out. So basically, they won't be able to help to create more money. So that's equal to the required reserve. So that's based on your required reserve ratio by the Fed. So the RR is required reserve plus the actual reserve wanted reserve by the bank. So RR plus ER equal to the total reserve. So total reserve. So so the total reserve here, as I said, required reserves is equal to the required reserve ratio R times the total checkable deposit. So now we understand those things gonna all play a role in my formula we're gonna see soon. And so the one more thing we can look at is our monetary base MB, because the M and the money supply equal to the multiplier times the MB. So the MB we learned in the second video of this chapter. So that's equal to the currency plus the reserve. Currency plus reserve. And obviously the reserve will equal to the required reserve and excessive reserve. And so the required excessive reserve also equal to R times D. So basically the required reserve ratio times the deposit, checkable deposit. So now we know all the symbols, what they mean. Now we just need to put everything together. So as you look at here, the key when you look at these slides. So the previous slides is try to help you understand why we end up this formula. So this is the key formula has always keep in your mind. And so the previous slides just help you to understand why the money supply has to equal to this equation. So look at the numerator. 1 plus C. So 1 plus C. So what is a C? So 1 plus C. C is the currency ratio. And then divided by R plus E plus C. So the R, what is R? R is the required reserve ratio, and the plus E, and the E is E is the excessive reserve ratio, and the plus C. C is the required. C is the currency holding in hand ratio, currency ratio. So basically, you can see they are all on the denominator, R, E, and C. So that means they have a negative relationship with the money supply. That's basically what we learned in the previous lecture, how this factor affecting money supply. So this part, 1 plus C divided by R plus E plus C, so that is called a money multiplier. So money multiplier itself has a negative relationship between required reserve ratio, the excessive reserve ratio, and the currency ratio. So this is not surprising you because we learned how those factors are affecting money supply. So this is a multiplier ratio, money multiplier times monetary base. That will help us to figure out how much money will supply to the whole economy. So let's practice on the numbers, and we use this formula to help us to calculate how much money will supply to the society. So let's see the required reserve ratio is 10%, and the currency in the circulation is $400 billion, and the checkbook deposit is $800 billion, and the excessive reserve by the bank is $0.8 billion. So therefore, the total money supply we understand is equal to the currency plus the checkbook deposit, because that's the liability for the Fed. So that's totally equal to 400 plus 800 billion equal to $1,200 billion. So that is the money supply. And so what is the what is the money multiplier? So therefore, in order to calculate money multiplier, you have to go back to look at what is the multiplier should look like. 1 plus C divided by R plus E plus C. So we just need to get the value for C and E. We know R, the required reserve ratio is 10%. So therefore, the C equal to the currency in circulation 400 divided by the checkbook deposit. So 400 divided by 800, you got 0.5. So that's C. So the E equal to the excessive reserve divided by deposit. So therefore 0.8 divided by 800, you got 0.001. So these two will be on your denominator, and so the C will also show up your numerator you plug in. So therefore in this case, so the monetary multiplier equal to 2.5. So 2.5. So this is how we are calculating the money multiplier and how we're going to figure out the money supply. So that's the end of this video and the end of this chapter.